some points. I've been involved with asset management for probably 12, 15 years now. Involved with the standards committee for about 10 years. And I'm not going to talk a lot about ISO 55000. I think I understand it fairly well. And I would say one thing about it for all of you who are very much invested in the standard is it is a management system standard. ISO has about 45 management system standards. And I just got off a meeting of the American ANSI National Accreditation Board, which accredits the certifying bodies for all of the management system standards, as well as other technical standards. And it's pretty clear to me that the ISO 55000 to be successful needs to work in conjunction with other management system standards. We've talked about safety, we've talked about security, somebody mentioned risk. There are standards for all those. We know about 9,000 and 14,000, which are leading standards. I think we're going to see 55,000 be successful when it is adopted and used in conjunction with other management system standards. And I'm not going to say a lot more about that, but these standards are all written to the same general template. They are meant to work together and they are meant to be shared. So I think that part of my emphasis, and actually a large part of it these days, is on looking at how management systems work together, how the standards work together, and how the management system standards work with the inherent corporate management systems that we always encounter. So, enough of that. Future of asset management. One of the things I like to say is and to point out is that assets, physical assets, have become the leading edge of the organization in respect to many issues. And you don't have to look far to see assets, physical assets exposed to climate change. You can look to the West Coast, you can look to the South Coast, you can look to the Midwest, you can look to the East Coast. You can see where wildfires, where hurricanes, where drought have exposed physical assets to incredible difficulties. And that's impossible to ignore. To me, there's no question that asset management is critical, and to me, there's no question that it will be adopted. How it's adopted, I'm not sure, but you cannot ignore what's happening to assets these days. Whether you're an insurance company, whether you're a financier, whether you're a customer, whether you're a manager, you cannot ignore what's happening to physical assets. COVID has certainly exposed physical assets. We have airplanes sitting on the ground, and we have a cruise company spending $250 million a month to mothball cruise ships. I mean, that's asset management, but it was not exactly what we were looking for when we started talking about asset management. But this is an incredibly expensive time for physical assets. We have issues of capacity. Manufacturing is looking at rapid changes to its assets to meet capacity and to meet competition issues. And those changes will involve heavy automation and will change the nature, not only of the assets, but of the management of those assets. I expect to see much more automation of asset management. I've made a joke a number of times about rewriting ISO 55000 in machine language so that the robots can interpret it and enforce it. And I'm not so sure that's a joke anymore. And the last thing I'd say in terms of the value of assets is public poverty. The government agencies at the state and local level that you have mentioned and talked about are poor. They're facing the difficulties of managing assets with declining revenues in the case of fee-based revenues for assets, and most of our utilities are supported on fees, on user fees. And one, the users have trouble paying the fees, and two, when usage goes down, such as might be true with oil or water or other things, the usage fees can't keep up. So that means that the organization needs to put in a base increase. And you don't have to look far around the country to see political opposition to base rate increases. And yet you don't have to look far to see the need for those increases in terms of the aging infrastructure. So assets are in our sites, and they will remain there. And the leaders of these organizations are involved. They can't avoid being involved, I believe. I see them responding aggressively in some cases. In the industrial sector, particularly process industry, you don't have to look very far to see Industry 4.0 and the factory of the future being aggressively implemented right now. And you're seeing some of that in industries like construction, where we thought it would take longer, but it's moving in fairly quickly. I also see these responses completely hamstrung by politics in many cases, and politics in the broadest sense. That is, leaders at any level not wanting to take responsibility for the costs and consequences of these assets. So the strategy is business as usual in many cases and hope for the best. And I think my last sentence says, head in the sand is an attractive option, but it isn't going to help the problem.